anything first?
I'll just set the stage by saying that there's been tremendous momentum over the summer. We're pleased with a lot of the accomplishments. As an example, our first grade teachers are thrilled with their new window walls, casement, their new ventilators. Our sixth grade teachers are thrilled with the prospect of having heat this winter, because of all the work that's been done in preparation for it. And the ceilings were open throughout the school. Over 1,000 feet of piping was put in. But also, as a side benefit, while the ceilings were open, there were a lot of improvements that we did, such as the wiring for our our internet networking, computer networking, and we were able to do different kinds of safety things too. Our firewalls were improved. There were a lot of gaps that were taken care of. And Greg, who knows so much as far as maintenance and repairs, was able to do a lot of things that weren't in the update. So we're grateful for that. All yours.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, I'm John Rice, AKF Engineers. We're the one who did a lot of the specifying at been before you before. So I just wanted to give you an update on what happened this summer. First of all, we got somewhat of a late start. There was contract negotiations before the contractors could get started. But in the wake of that, this tremendous amount of work and progress has been done. And I just wanted to start out just to commend ESG for the amount of work that they've been able to accomplish so far. The way they do coordination between all the different contractors that have to work, and also the way they handle all these different construction issues that come up, showed a great deal of professionalism. So wanted to commend both Paul Gandy and Matt Ward for their day-to-day handling of the project. In terms of what's been completed so far, one of the things that you might not notice, but I think is going to have probably one of the biggest impacts on the school, is the sealing of the building envelope. And not just the new window walls. This is the existing walls that remain. There was a lot of areas. We had the building infrared scan, and it showed a lot of heat transfer leaving the building. So they got in there and they sealed above beams, and where the roof meets the curtain wall, there's a lot of times gaps there. So there's a lot of sealing there, so I think it's going to make the building more comfortable this winter. As Dr. Seller mentioned, they ran all the hot water piping all the way down from the boiler room all the way down to the town end of the building. That's going to be important because the hot water piping that previously did heating only is now going to be used for both heating and air conditioning. So we had to run a new set of pipes down for the types of equipment that only do heating, domestic hot water heating, pool heating. So that was done this summer. All the mechanical equipment in the pod area, the S-wing, all those fan coil units, that was all installed. Painting in the corridors, and then the A, B, and C wing classrooms. And we walked the building, and I think the building just looks amazing. It's fabulous for the start of school. I haven't been here other starts of school this year.
But I'll say so.
It does. And then finally, one of the most complex parts was the replacement of the A-wing roof, the replacement of the roof over the A-wing. That was one of the areas where there was water damage to the ceilings underneath the A-wing. There was a couple of classrooms that weren't able to be used. And so that was an emergency project that got done in the amount of about 3 weeks. And so that I walked that roof 2 weeks ago. So it's a brand new roof, well insulated, very professionally done. So that was a great addition. So just two other updates I want to give you. One, that we are applying for state grant reimbursement for portions of the project that qualify. And that's going to be one of the things that you're going to vote on this evening. That we had a meeting up at the state, and they, as part of the state grant application process, we had to produce this document called Educational Specifications. And what this is it's the same project, it's the same construction project that you saw last time that you voted on and approved, but it was put in their format. And their format is, there's two types of improvements. Improvements that are eligible for reimbursement and those that are ineligible. So that's the first thing. We split it out into eligible and ineligible. And then we described it just area by area, that's the way they wanted it. So we went to A, B, and C wing, what the educational functions are in that area, and what improvements are in that area. So it's the same project that you voted on and approved, but for the state grant application, they required this to be voted on in the format that they specify. So that's going to be before you today. So just the good news is that it's going to be a large state grant application of eligible items. When we went before the state, they, well, let me step back for a second. The items that are ineligible are replacement, repair, those type of items are ineligible for reimbursement. But everything that's new construction, so the roof, the window wall systems, those are all new. And then anything that's a new feature, for example, air conditioning. So air conditioning was not in most of the building before, so that's a new feature. So all the mechanical equipment, all the ductwork. So a large part of what we are doing that we thought was ineligible before, now we're applying as eligible. So that's all in the state grant. So it's about $5 million worth of work that we're applying for reimbursement, and it's a 20% reimbursement rate. So it's about a $1 million application that we're submitting for reimbursement.
Do you forecast the success of that application?
No, I don't do any I'm not a betting man. I don't forecast it. We sat down, we met with them, they gave us the guidelines, they told us what was eligible, we submitted to them. They have a checklist, which is eligible, ineligible, so, we submit it one way, they'll agree or disagree, and I'm telling you what we're applying for, and we'll come back again and tell you what we were granted.
Did they give you a time frame when we could hear?
Okay, good question there. Because of the way we did the project, using an energy performance contract where you do the work before it's, I guess you award the work before it's bid, that, so some of this has to get approved by state legislature. Special legislation is required. So that won't happen until next June. So that's probably around the time when we'll find out.
Is it June or January?
I think the legislation's in January, but I think the decision comes in June.
So after
from,
we get...
From what we've heard, I think the final decision's going to be around June, but the legislation meets in January.
So the application was submitted, or you need us to vote first?
We need you to vote on approval of the ed spec. That's going to be part that has to go into the application.
Okay.
So that's one of the missing items before we can submit it.
Was there a time frame when it had to be in by? We're okay?
No, we're okay.
All right.
We're okay.
All right.
There was a time frame where some things had to happen, but they happened already. So
Okay.
we're okay. So that's the state grant application. And then the final thing is a bit of good news, is that for the, that we applied for and were awarded a state grant. This is a ZREC grant. This is for the solar PV system. So we were awarded what they call a ZREC credit for the solar array that's planned for the school. So this is going to be a very big solar PV panel array. It's 250 kW. It's about 1,000 panels. So it's going to be one of the biggest in the state. It's going to be very impressive for the school. And so we were awarded that, and we sat and met with the solar vendor today. And just to go over logistics, that's going to be installed in the school next year in the summertime.
That's separate and distinct from the grant that we're voting on?
Yeah, that's a separate grant.
Okay.
It's a program under the state also, but it's not, it's not the reimbursement program. This is under, UI has this, what they call a power purchase agreement. So it's zero money down, so we didn't have to spend anything for this. So you enter into an agreement with CEFIA, which is a division of the state. It's
I'm not going to know the acronym anyway.
Clean
Okay.
energy. What is it?
The Green Bank now.
What's that?
It's the Green Bank.
The Green Bank. Yeah, they're going to call it the Green Bank. Yeah, that's why I'm
Better way of putting it.
I don't know if that has an acronym. No. So it's a power purchase agreement. So we agree to purchase electricity from CEFIA, or the Green Bank,
Yeah.
for a period of 20 years at a rate about 6 cents per kilowatt hour, less than what we're paying now. And that pays for the whole installation. So it's no money. So the money that was allocated in the project, it won't get spent for that. That'll just go back to the town or go to an owner's contingency.
And how much was that?
That was about $387,000 that we had allocated to that.
Substantial.
Yeah, so that, plus the state reimbursements. So project's going very well. The window wall system's going in now. I know Paul is going to show some pictures, the window walls in the A, B, and C wings. I don't know if everyone has seen those. Have you toured the classrooms? And
Some have, some haven't.
okay. I think it'd be worthwhile to go see. It's a new curtain wall system, so it's more insulated walls, insulated glass. It's going to hold the heat in a lot better, make it a lot more comfortable. So it's a good project so far.
What percentage of our electrical consumption will be met by our solar?
That's a good question. I need to stop and look at that. It's going to be a good deal of it. It's 250 kW. When we looked at your load profile, what it is. I'm not sure. I'll answer that question for next. Maybe I'll answer to you, and maybe you could send a notice out. And I don't want to speculate, but it's
So
going to be
whatever
a good
the
deal.
percentage is that we need, we buy at that reduced rate?
Yes. Yeah, there's going to be two bills that you're going to receive now. One is going to be from Cephia at this reduced rate, and then one is going to be your normal bill that you've been getting, but it's going to be much smaller. So the sum of those is going to be a lot less than the one that you're getting right now.
And you're gonna microturb.
And we'll be a microturb also.
Was it always anticipated that the solar panels would be installed under a power purchase agreement? Was that part of the original financing structure?
When we first, yes. We learned a great deal after, at some point along the process. I forgot when we learned what. But we always wanted to be a power purchase agreement because, the school can't take advantage of the tax incentives. So it always needed to be some third party that takes advantage of
And
the
then
tax
they own and maintain
incentives.
it as well,
And they
which is-
own and maintain. So it's 20 years, the school doesn't have to repair it. They just have to agree to purchase the power for these 20 years, and the state takes care of everything else. It's the program, it's no money down.
Purchase a minimum volume of power or just power?
Purchase whatever it puts out. So if the solar panels start degrading, if anything happens like that, it will put out less. So it'll be in the state's interest to come and make sure it stays at its optimum. And see, the state they take the ZREC credit. So the ZREC is for a block of energy that's produced, that gets sold to the state, and then, am I saying this right? And then the state gives a grant. So if we didn't have a third party, every time we sold a block, we would get a grant quarterly. So that's going to go to Cephia now. Cephia is a third party entity. So it's in the state's interest to keep it operating properly.
Okay, so I think, Paul, you're up next. Does anybody have any other questions for John? Okay. Thank
Actually, I
you,
do.
John.
Yes.
So the grants, the first item you were talking about, to the extent that those grants go through, how does that affect the overall financing profile of the project?
It just means that money
Spending
will come
less.
back. It means
Come back to
the
the town.
less should be spent overall, or the owner's contingency could get larger, and maybe you could do other things. It just means that less is going to be spent in the items that we specified for the project.
I have one question. Excuse me. You mentioned that there was an unforeseen problem, or you handled a problem with the A-wing roofs. It was a major thing. Was that something that was anticipated? I thought that was one of the major concerns.
Yeah,
When
when,
we showed pictures of how bad things were, that was one of the rooms we showed.
Yeah,
So-
when, before they lifted up the roof, no one knew how much damage the under layers were going to be. So, but when they turned the systems off at the end of this past, at the end of the spring semester, I guess in a couple of the rooms, there was water damage that was visible on the ceilings. So, and then when they took the roof up, a lot of it was damaged. So it was a great deal of, and Paul's going to show you pictures, and the construction guys will explain that in detail.
Okay.
But a lot of the underlayers of the roof had to be replaced.
And they'll avoid the acronyms and all that too.
That's right.
Okay.
I hope so.
Gypsum. Gypsum deck. The
Paul,
deck.
Paul, it's on you.
He dumped it on your lap. Go ahead.
Well, Paul's up to it.
Margaret, the board, and Dr. Stella and your staff, thanks for allowing ESG to be a part of this project and to be able to give you a progress report for this evening. As you know, school was out on June the 20th of last year. There was an increase of, for us, a loss of time, and for you, an increase of school days because of snow. And the teachers returned on August the 25th. So effectively for full-time work, we had about 65 days to do the primary schedule-driven milestones for this year. And we're happy to say that we accomplished most of those, and actually I think we accomplished them all. We are continuing to work in a limited way behind the scenes and with staff permission on other areas of school at this time. Window wall is one of those, and I'll discuss that a little bit more. And all of that is done with careful planning and with no interruption to the educational process in the meantime. So if you would, I'll step back there and we'll look at some photos of the progress. The owl in the hat was not my idea, but I did steal it from one of your teachers. I took that picture. I'll begin with the very beginning. In the November and December of 13, ESG removed 2 old and installed 3 new boilers. Bear in mind, these are construction photos, not finished things, so scaffolding's in the way. But you have, those were installed on an emergency basis because one boiler that you had was leaking, and it had to be exchanged fairly quickly. AKF went to work on a fast-track basis and got us drawings and specifications. We were able to get these in and allowed for no unexpected downtime, although you were at risk for a short period of time. Only an engineer or a contractor would like this, but this is some really nice piping that goes to the boiler. And without this stuff, it wouldn't work so well.
Very
The first week that we took the school, we took the ceilings out of the major hallways, the north-south hallway, the K-wing, the S-wing, all of those ceilings came out to allow us to have the ability to do our work above the ceiling. So that was taken out. One of the first things that happened was to install new copper piping. There's 2 loops that were installed, and there's a hot water loop and then what's called a dual temperature loop. This is the copper line that goes, basically both of these loops go from the boiler room all the way to the south end of the building. This is what we call the dual temperature loop. Forgive me for not having the actual pipe, but this is the finished insulated pipe that, again, as Dr. Stella might have mentioned in the past, 1,000 lineal feet, and I can't remember how many hundreds of fittings he said we put in, but it really was indeed quite a lot of work over a short period of time. But that loop, as John alluded to, gives you quite a lot of flexibility in the future for heating and cooling. In the S-wing, because there was failing equipment in that area, we kind of reoriented our schedule so that we did the S-wing first. And to do so, we started there, and in the S-wing are fan coil units, which are effectively units that blow air, either heated or cooled. Those new units are above your ceilings now, and above all the ceilings in each and every classroom is a new ductwork distribution system. That in turn is also tied to a new control system. These are just progress photos to show the work in hand. So that when we finish the S-wing, you'll be, and when the controls are hooked up, you have much greater variability and ability to manage temperature on a room-by-room basis, not a unit-by-unit basis as you've had in the past. After the majority of the above ceiling stuff was worked out and taken care of, we put in a new 2x2 grid. The old ceiling grid was a 2-foot by 4-foot grid that looked like this. The new 2x2 grid is a little bit stronger. If there ever were over time an ability for the tile to sag, 2x2 is going to give you a much better life expectancy and a better look. And after all inspections were done, Dr. Stella also mentioned there were some code upgrades that were taken care of during the process. We had permission to put the new ceiling in place, and that's the north-south hallway outside of the cafeteria. In the A, B, and C wings, we removed the existing cabinetry, which was kind of tired, and
So
put in
lovely.
new cabinetry, sinks, and bubblers. And you'll also see a new paint job in there. There's a new color scheme in the A, B, and C wings. Still, it is geared toward wayfinding. You'll see that a little bit later. But you have new millwork now. This is a pretty nice addition to what there was. And here's the A-wing roof.
Paul, just one comment that the new sinks are ADA compliant, handicapped accessible, so it can just wheel up to it and use it as the other ones were.
That's right. Exactly right. And each of these sinks have bubblers. The A-wing roof.
Hey, I just want to,
Yes.
whatever it is.
You know what a bubbler is.
It is a water fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a water cooler, a water
Parts of
fountain.
the country,
Yeah.
different words, I'm just making
Paul,
sure
you're
we're
using the
all-
right word. Everybody else here. Wrong.
Exactly. So the next major thing we had on our schedule was to complete the A-wing roofing. As we started our way across this roof, it's basically from the bottom of the photo here toward the top, which is, you can actually see a little water still standing back there. As we worked our way toward the back, difficulties were encountered on the last two rooms, A7 and A8, which are the two large rooms in that wing. And the problem of the failed gypsum deck, this is a gypsum deck that holds, is the load-bearing system. And the problems with it were that it had failed over time because it had been very wet. There was the tar and gravel membranes had effectively sealed in the leaked water and didn't have a place for it to go. And it failed in those areas. We've discovered that on a Friday about lunch, and luckily for us, we have a very good structural engineer that is local, Spiegel, Zemechnik and Shaw. They were on site within 2 hours. The local code official, the building official was here. The town representative was on site, and before 9:30 Friday night, that night, we had a plan to replace the defective areas with a metal deck and then re-roof and bring our way back up. This is the re-roofing of the standard roof and just the old stuff that goes off. There's quite a voluminous amount of material that came off. On the right, this may be a little difficult to tell, but the gray area on the right is the gypsum deck that was being replaced. And on the left is, again, not a very good photograph, it's the metal deck that's being put in as we worked our way across the rooms. This was a great idea, I thought, for a skylight in A7. My idea was not accepted. And this is your new deck that covers, that is the new structural support system for those two rooms, A7 and A8. And this is the new 90% complete PVC reflective roof that goes on the A-wing. You will get this roof on the A-wing, the B-wing, and the C-wing, and the common core areas before the contract is done. As a matter of fact, with some assistance from Dr. Stella and his team, we're working to start next week to put a portion of this roof above the boiler room. It's pretty important to get that done because above the boiler room is the location of the new chiller substructure. There's a steel substructure that sits up there now when we install it, and we want to be sure and roof underneath that while we have a good opportunity in open spaces. Window wall work. We started on the A-wing, and with a coordinated schedule of night work and day work, we've worked out a way for the class, each individual class, to be out of their room one day out of the 4 days that we need to retrofit the wall. Take the old wall out, put a new wall in. On the inside of that new wall, remove the old unit ventilator, install a new unit ventilator, pipe it, and then add millwork on both sides. So far, that's on schedule. This is the first window wall. Room A5 was our first one. There's quite a dramatic difference. If you do take a look from the outside and inside when you get an opportunity. As I mentioned, we did major hallway painting across the entire building, and then in the A-wing, B-wing, and C-wing, A-wing and C-wing, I'm sorry, we painted the interior classrooms. Is that right? We didn't do that.
Man's going down.
We did just the A-wing interior classrooms. But we will do the other. It's much fresher, much brighter. It really looks good. Newman Architects helped with this. What project would be complete without water-saving toilets? And you've got all new ones. That is my presentation. Sure appreciate it. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know ESG has been incredibly responsive to requests. I think Greg was the one who said, you got to do something with the S-wing. I can't, go another winter. And they came back and said, we'll do it as our priority. So as issues come up, ESG is very responsive. And Dr. Stella's smiling, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, because, I just want to add to it. We're very, very pleased with our project managers, Matt Ward and Paul Gandy. They've become part of our school community. They have fallen in love with Beecher Road School, so they go above and beyond. Doug Tischbaum is here from ESG, flew in from Indiana just to be here to answer the additional questions. So we're pleased with the progress. There's still a lot of more work to go. And we're very thankful to our administrators and our teachers and staff for the any flexibility that they've shown and the resilience, knowing that that the end product is what we're looking for.
Okay, are there any questions on the building update?
How the teachers been doing with the Dr. Stella?
I'm sorry?
You're saying they're cooperating, everybody's been happy with it. They must be happy, they're the ones on the front line.
Yeah, well, from this point of view, I'm sure that there were a lot of questions during the summer.
Right.
There was angst, there was some misinformation that was passing around. But we managed to give a number of updates, and then we met personally with the first grade teachers before school started to actually give them the information, correct information, and also show what was happening. So if you think of it this way, you had major walls being replaced, you had casement, ventilators in there, and I don't believe there's one teacher that was out of the room for more than one day. So in my experience, that is fantastic. That took a lot of cooperation. So what was the resilience and the flexibility of the teachers? The first grade teachers, as soon as they understood, all what the game plan was and all the elements, they were with it and willing to cooperate in any way. One teacher, for example, how did they cooperate? One teacher, it was her turn to move. We had the library media set in place. What she did was said, okay, I'll use that, but I want to make this a day of adventures for our children. And she went to work with the science supervisor on studying butterflies or shadows, and then they went somewhere else to study something else. So it was a day of joy and learning for the children. So that showed flexibility on their part. And so basically, and then you had the window walls in. Then another night we had to wait till there were 2 or 3 classes. Then I always refer to them as the little elves came at night to put in the shelving, the casement work, and so on. And so the teachers didn't set up their libraries until that was in place, so they were very happy. So that's the kind of thing that was there. But of course, like any huge building project, there were some misunderstandings and some misinformation and some correct information. But we try to get out, all kinds of updates and things like that. And with like any building project, there are some changes or surprises, some stepping back or stepping forward kind of thing. So we try to be transparent with the board and also with the teachers and the community, letting them know what's happened. I could tell you this here, it's not time for my update though, right? Yeah. Okay, I'll hold off until my update.
Just so we can let everybody leave in the building, we need a motion for the ed spec submission.
Move that we endorse the revised educational specifications for state project TMP 167 PJVK for submission to the Connecticut State Department of Education.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. Is there any questions or any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
We
you
look
very
forward
much.
to additional updates, but thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, but
But you'll understand if
it's
we
pretty
don't.
exciting stuff.
It won't be too
You're gonna
effective.
you're gonna miss my report. Hold on.
I'll watch that too.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There's going to be a quiz next time, John. Okay, so we're actually on 1.4 correspondence. Chris, anything? Nothing. Okay, public comment, Marcia? I know it.
She always keeps up.
All right, very good. Okay, consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to extract? No? Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, great, thank you. All right, PTO update, Tim. Our new president.
Yes, I was
right?
elected president.
So you ran against a tough field.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Kicked off the year so far pretty well. At the end of our fiscal year, we donated money to the school to improve the playground, to install some mats or a surface underneath the swings to improve the handicap access to those swings so that the teachers can now wheel children right up there. It's a lot easier to get the most use out of the playground. We had volunteers come and do about 800, a little less than that, first day packets that all went out. Our school's kids supply program came in and was distributed. Little glitches with the building, accessibility and where it was delivered, but it all got done. And then we held a teacher luncheon on the Tuesday that the teachers returned to school. And that was a nice event. Teachers appreciated it, and everyone had a good time there. Our ice cream social was very successful. I think we've had the most people that I can remember coming. We raised, I don't have the final numbers, but somewhere $1,200 to $1,500 for the PTO at that event, and had great weather for it. Today was Picture Day, and tomorrow is the second day of Picture Day, which is another fundraiser. Upcoming events are October 8th, we have our Harvest Hike over at the Alice Newton Street Memorial Park in the center of town. And then, of course, the Halloween Hoop, which will be October 18th of this year. And hoop preparation sessions are going on. They start Wednesday, they go every week. So we're looking forward to another successful event there. And we're in the process of planning grade level social nights for the year. So those are going to continue. We have a chair that's going to take care of that. And that's about all there is.
Okay, Carol has a question.
If memory serves, the superintendent is empowered to receive a gift not in excess of $1,000, and anything above 1,000 has to be approved by the board. Is that correct?
I think there's an exception with the PTO, working with the PTO, but we'll check the policy again, but usually it's not with the PTO, because they've done that before with the other playgrounds too.
I don't,
I can remember approving a very significant gift from the PTO. What was the value?
The value was about $16,000, so.
I think so, maybe 15?
Yeah. We'll review those policies right away and get back to the board on that.
We meaning,
That's all.
Not Matt?
I'll check with the chair. Yeah, Carl, we'll look those up right away and get back to the board on that.
All right.
Thank you, Tim. Very, I was at this ice cream social, I've never seen so many cars.
Yeah.
They
yeah,
were
it was
parked
very-
on every inch of grass there is. And the Woodbridge Police, we had three police officers
police
here
officers,
Kept them
yeah,
helping
so-
to keep everybody,
Yeah, it went well.
yeah, it was great. It was great. We had a perfect night. Thank you, Tim.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Stella, your report.
I would be remiss if I didn't start by thanking once again this school board and the town boards and the citizens of Woodbridge for approving the update. We see progress and we know what the end is, so we have our eye on the prize, and it wouldn't happen without the support of all of you and the citizens of Woodbridge, so we're thankful. We're thankful for that. And I have to say, I'm very, very pleased with the opening of school. During the summer, the school was a mess. I mean, as far as work going on, ceilings open, things around, and so on. And as we got closer to the opening of school, it didn't seem to get better because work was progressing. In fact, momentum was gaining. The teachers came back on August 25th. Many of them wanted to come back a lot sooner, but we held them off. So the question was, we had only a few days to set up, and that meant moving furniture back into the classroom, new furniture coming in, old furniture getting rid of. So if you looked that week before the children came back, well, if you listened, you would hear my heart pounding. But I have to say, I'm going to start by thanking our custodial staff. Throughout the summer, they kept very, very busy, absolutely very, very busy, doing all kinds of things, cleaning rooms and so on, but then they find out that some work had to be done and redoing it. They painted, they did extra kinds of work. They worked around the clock. And as we got closer to school, they are the ones who really made it happen. If you look at the Friday before Labor Day, the place wasn't ready. They worked a miracle over the weekend. They came in over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, worked late into the night. This school was ready for the children when they came back. And in thanking the custodians, I want to thank also Greg Kula, who did an absolute wonderful job of leadership, managing the crew, but also the work that he did. There's no one that knows this building better than him. I've come to know his skill base. He could repair just about anything and everything, and he was busy constantly throughout the summer. But no matter when I came in, whether it was late at night to check on things, whether I popped in on a Saturday to put on my hard hat and just check things, whether it was on the roof, whether it was in one part of the building or the other, Greg was always there. So he gave generously of his time, and I wanted to publicly recognize him and thank him and his crew for all they did to get the school ready. And then I thank also our teachers, because they worked a miracle in a few days' time. Again, I don't know how they did it. We opened the school on a Saturday too. Many of them came in on that Saturday. Many of them worked till the late afternoon, early evening hours. But the classrooms were set up for the children. There was some work that had to be done in some of the classrooms that had more work on them, but the teachers really made it possible. And our administrative staff, was second to none, a wonderful team. There's nothing that they didn't refuse to do during the summer, whether it was helping with the summer school programs, handling things at this school. They showed great flexibility and resiliency, so I want to thank them. And I thank our summer school directors. Sandy is here. We also have Kathy Salinardi and Teresa Nacuzzi, Sheila Harakamp ran the special ed program. They made it look easy. It wasn't at all, but it was good for our children. So did I feel good at the beginning of school? Absolutely. Our children came back with smiles. They were happy. Our parents were happy. I don't know, it's because it was the children back at school, but they were happy. And we didn't miss a beat. The parents and children didn't notice all the work that was done during the summer. So we're off to a good start. And I'll pass it over to Gina Prisco for our Beecher Road School update.
Thank you, Dr. Stella. And you really said it well. We have gotten off to a great start. So we couldn't have started without the PTO, so I would also like to thank them. They came in, they were flexible with where things needed to be delivered. They gave us whatever time they could to help get the students' first day packet. As parents, you know that you get a lot of information in the beginning of the year, so we certainly appreciate all of that support. And I know the teachers appreciate when there is a luncheon for them. It just is that way to say thank you. But really, it's us that needs to say thank you to them. So I wanted to add to that. As far as the flexibility, the question came up, how are the teachers handling and managing? The children don't know any different. They're having a great time. The teachers are working through everything they need to do, and it's the collaboration and the cooperation of everybody together that is making this a success. When they have to move out of their room, and you heard Dr. Stella say, they go on an adventure, and that's exactly what it is for the children, because our kindergartners are now first grade, so they're already thinking they're big kids, and now they get to go somewhere else, and they'll be in the library, or they're in the science lab. So I do appreciate all of the support and everybody working together. I go to a teacher and say, okay, here's what we need to do. What do you need? The custodians are there at the end of the day to help them move their materials. They are making it work, and so we do appreciate that. And I'll thank ESG as well. Paul and Matt, they've been whatever we need, they're willing to help and be flexible wherever they can be. So that being said, despite a few very warm days in the beginning of the year, we are off to a great year, and I look forward to giving some more good reports this year. Thanks.
So any questions for Gina?
Oh, I'm
hi,
sorry,
Lisa.
Really it's for Dr. Stella.
Okay.
What further disruptions do we anticipate?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Are we done once that
Yeah.
window wall is done?
Okay, the A wing, okay, I'm going by memory, should be finished before the week of the 23rd. So it's almost finished. Then we plan to do the C wing and hope to finish that by or before the first week of October. Now again, with the C wing, what we anticipate that no teacher will be out for more than a day. Okay, so those are the two main things. Now, with the, we have to get a chiller on the roof. I'm learning a lot about construction too. You have to get a chiller on the roof, and that has to go on a particular framework. But if you do that, so a crane is coming on the Jewish holiday when the school building will be closed. But if you do that, then how are you going to do the roof? You have to take it off again. So there's a section of the roof that I think is very important to be done. So we're just looking at that section of the roof. So we will have workers here working on that for approximately 4 days. And that will be the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before the Jewish holiday, and also on that Thursday when nobody's here. So you could anticipate those 4 days. Now, what will that mean? That will mean in that section of the building, the roof has to be torn off. That's over the gym area, over the health room, over the boiler room, that area there. So the work will be done from 6 o'clock in the morning to about 9:30. The noise level, I'm not sure how loud. They kind of described it. It doesn't sound like it's something that we can't get through with it. There'll be workers around. There'll be materials stored on the back campus near the section they're working on. But we met with the safety officer today. A fence will be put around it so that no children can get near that part. So disruption, The language arts room is in that area. So Gina will probably have to ask the teachers, look, for the next 3 days, can you work out of another area? That'll be one disruption. The health room, Gina
You've
will
already
probably
worked that
ask the teachers, can you work in the classrooms for 3 days? So it's that kind of flexibility and resilience that we have. And so that's what I foresee. A lot of the work that was described will be done in the background now. Again, a lot at night. There'll be some days when nothing is happening. And but we'll keep the board abreast as if there are any surprises or anything that goes along. I am, I'm knocking on wood. I am pleased with the collaboration and the fact that there isn't more disturbance in a project like this here. So it's project managers are good to work with. They really try hard. They know that we want to move the project along, that it's important to move it along. At the same time, we want to minimize to the extent possible disruption.
Thank you.
Greg, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree. In my past experiences, I've worked with a lot of different construction projects, and this one has been a tough one, retrofitting old building like this. But these project managers and the subs that they've chosen have truly done a miraculous job in minimizing the impact to the education process. They worked very hard to come up with a schedule to where the classroom would only be disrupted basically for 1 day. They'd have to move out for 1 day and then go back. Because originally it was going to be about 3 days per classroom. And it seems as it was a little tough at first, but everybody said, oh, this isn't bad, 1 day back in. So it's just been wonderful. And I think once we get past these next window walls, things will calm down, everything will be done in the evening, and then it'll be a full court press in the summer. So.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think that's my report. Oh, no, we have the old world language program. Let me just mention, just as an introduction, we're proud of the world language program. It's been a lot of hard work by a lot of people over the past number of years, going back to 08, 09. There were some board members who were here at that time. We had an exploratory model at that time. And that was in French and Spanish, 6 months, 6 months. We went to a proficiency model, one that looked at K to 12, and the idea that children leaving high school would be proficient, at least proficient in a language. And we went from, there was a time when it was grades 3 to 6, and we increased that with our proficiency model to K to 6. And each year, even those years that the number of classes increased, we gradually each year increased the amount of time that we've dedicated to world language. The curriculum is a well-crafted curriculum. A lot of thought and planning went into it. I give gratitude to our world language teachers who worked so hard on it with outside consultants, and they really developed a nice curriculum suitable for primary. And also the assessment design in 6th grade, a lot of work went into that. Now, I'm going to do some research over this next year. At this time, I may be wrong, but at this time, I don't know of any elementary school. I know Glastonbury has a lot of emphasis on language, but I don't know of any elementary school that has the kind of comprehensive assessment design that we do, that we're serious about learning and our children leaving with us here. Also, we have schools that have been asking to take a look at the program. The latest was a school from Rhode Island that they want to send teachers down to look at the program. We have a large number of our children in the advanced program on the middle school, and we have little indicators. We have several children who have gone to Hopkins who have skipped a year or two because they're on a higher level. We're not going to talk about goals tonight. I understand that. But
Not till later at the end.
Till later, that's correct. But we are looking each year to try to enhance and improve it. And we're very fortunate because we have that support in Woodbridge, and we have a board that's extremely interested in it. So with that, I'll introduce our world language teacher. Senora Goldberg and Senora Wolfson. They'll give an executive summary of the program and then the assessment design results.
No, you don't have to do this.
Welcome back to another year. My name is Stephanie Wolfson. This is Stephanie Goldberg, and we represent the World Language Department at Beecher Road School. And tonight we're going to give you an overview of the program. We're going to talk about the progression that we've made with contact time and how we changed the program a little bit from the exploratory to the proficiency model. And then we're going to talk about how we use the iPads in the 5th grade, since there was an incentive with that last year.
Are we supposed to recognize where we are?
You are. It's a test. Where do you think?
Barcelona.
Stay close. You're in the right country. You got it. See, the Plaza Mayor. Nice. Good. Yeah, and then we're going to talk about the 6th grade exit exam and where we're at with that. So, start with our goals. We want to create an authentic experience with the reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And also just create meaningful, authentic exposure to the language with our kids. And this is the Spanish schedule for this year. We teach kindergarten through 6th grade, and we are on a 6-day cycle. So that's for the specials. We have A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then over here, these are the minutes per cycle. And so just in case you don't know, it's a half hour per class. So kindergarten through 1st grade, they meet twice per cycle for a total of 60 minutes. 2nd grade meets once per cycle for a total of 30 minutes. 3rd grade meets twice per cycle for a total of 60 minutes. 4th, 3 times for a total of 90 minutes. And 5th and 6th grade come 4 times for a total of 120 minutes. We wanted to show you the progression of our entire program. So back in 2008, 09, we, as Dr. Stella had mentioned, we only taught our 3rd grade through 6th grade. And for half of the year, the students learned French, and for the other half, they learned Spanish. And then they would switch halfway through. And we only had a total of 65 1-half-hour sessions that year. And then in 09-10 is when I arrived, and we changed the program changed from the exploratory model to a proficiency model. And we opened it from kindergarten through 6th, but it was only Spanish. And so that year there was a total of 83 half-hour sessions. And then 10, 11, 11, 12, and 12, 13 look very similar, all K through 6, around 85, 89 classes. But last year, 13, 14 was when we doubled the contact time with kindergarten. And so there ended up being a total of 95 half-hour sessions. And then this year, we actually doubled the contact time in 1st grade. So it brings us to 150 sessions of Spanish. Oh, sorry. Whoa.
If it was
Just
150,
joking.
we wouldn't be standing here right now.
Yeah, we'd be dead. Okay, so this is just another way of showing it. This is the year we have the exploratory model, the red is the proficiency, and we almost doubled the amount of time that we see the kids. So it's really impressive having them back for Beecher Road. We also wanted to show you how we actually got those numbers. So this here is the grade level. or I'm sorry, yes, the grade, and then here we have the grade level classrooms. So how many, for example, how many 5th grades we have, or how many kindergartens we have. And then this is how many times, or how many classes they had per cycle. So in 11-12, kindergarten had 5, for example, but there were 5 kindergarten classrooms, and then there were 5 total Spanish classes. And then, you know, that's how we got the 87. And there was a total of 38 classrooms. 12 and 13 look very similar. The only increase that you see here between the 87 is because we had a higher enrollment. And then last year is really where you see that increase here. So we have 6 kindergartens, and then we doubled it, so now it was 12 Spanish classes per cycle, giving us that 95. Still around, 39 classes. And then this year, you can really see the numbers tally up, where we doubled this 1st grade. Now we have 12 classes. That's where we get the 105. And there's a total of 41 classes, or classrooms. Okay. So, what do we do? Well, everyone asks me when I say, oh, what do you do? I'm a kindergarten through 6th grade Spanish teacher. They all look at me like, kindergarten? How do you do that? Is it possible? Yes. I play the guitar, we sing songs, we read authentic books. I try to get the kids to interact as much as possible. We play with puppets. There's a little puppet theater that we do. Have a lot of manipulatives that I use in class. We also use the smart board, so I can kind of bring the culture into the classroom. Also, I can use, it's also an interactive tool, so that's how I use the smart board. And they're all packaged in thematic units, so it's a lot of fun, basically. We also use a lot of technology in the classroom. The reason why we do that is because it keeps our kids actively engaged in learning. It also creates, it's an opportunity for them to work on their technology skills, and all the while learn some proficiency in another language. And they're really, acquiring key technology skills and using higher level thinking skills. And we also use the smart board for those interactive pieces and to bring the culture into the classroom. Some other technology that we use are in the computer labs. We teach them how to use the PowerPoint, Keynote, Pages, Smart Notebook, and then the endless apps that we use on the iPad. And actually, Stephanie's going to talk to you all about how we use the iPads in 5th grade. Are we switching? Sure, we'll switch slides.
So this past year, the newest addition was in 5th grade. We incorporated the iPads, which was extremely successful. We found that the iPads were extremely engaging for students. They were highly motivated, and 100% participation. Every single class that came through that used the iPads, actively engaged really all the time. So the way we use these iPads, anything from taking notes on the iPad, creating vocabulary glossaries, different worksheets, even in an interview process or creating an interview, they use the iPad. And most importantly, they were sending emails, they were creating emails, and the biggest project, the culminating project at the end of the 5th grade unit, they created a digital album on the iPad, and then it was shared within the classroom, and they were quite impressive. So what I think is really great, one of the things we did is we have this whole idea of we're communicating with a fictitious exchange student in Spain. Someday it would be nice if it was actually a realistic, real person that we're communicating with. That's a goal. But it's a fictitious person that we're communicating with in Spain, Carlos Hernandez, which this past year they discovered that I am Carlos Hernandez. I kept it from them for a while, and then one day a child said, "Oh my God, it's you, Señora." I know what you're talking about. So they're communicating with Carlos Hernandez, and one of the things they did is they had to email Carlos and describe their homes. And they did this on the iPad. They created an email. And what I had them do at home is I had them create and design their house. And that involved labeling the rooms in their home and just talking about what's their favorite room in the house. How many rooms does their house have? What color is your kitchen, your bedroom? So here's an example of a project that was really wonderful. And this is what I had the kids do. I had the kids bring in their projects. They shared them within the room. And then I had them take the iPad and actually take a photo of it. And then that was used as an attachment to the email. So it had two components. It had the iPad and the creation of the email itself. And then we're still keeping the hands-on artistic creative part that took place at home. So Mrs. Atchison would be happy. So we still have the art and creativity in there, and we have the use of technology, and the Spanish is woven within all of that. So this was an exceptional project, but the kids really get into these designs. I mean, it's so detailed, huge. It's just amazing what they produce.
I just want to mention the email. I mean, we think about writing emails and it's no big deal, but these kids really, they don't know like what CC is, BCC is, they don't know how to make an attachment. They're writing in a foreign language, so they're getting used to like where the accent marks are. So that's like the fusion we're talking about, which is, I think, really awesome. It's amazing.
And the use of the Spanish keyboard is actually very exciting to them.
Yeah.
That they're typing in another language. To us, we didn't think it was anything huge, but to the kids, it's very exciting. So there's one example. Something else they created on their iPads was a personal profile. And again, this was all part of that exchange student unit, where they talk about themselves, their families in a general manner, what kinds of things do they like to do in their spare time, what are their favorite subjects, what are their favorite foods, favorite colors, any kind of favorites. So this was just one example. And that, again, that was done in the iPad. And here's another example. And some kids got really creative, even in the layout, and that's using the iPad as well. So that brings us to our 6th grade exit exam, which I have talked to this group about. It feels like we were just here recently. So I'm going to go through this very quickly so we keep everybody awake. But just a reminder about the 6th grade exit exam. This past year it was administered at the end of May into June. We usually give it earlier on in May, but with the SBAC testing, it got pushed back a little, but we finished everything we needed to. And just want to remind you of the purpose of it, which is really we're monitoring and evaluating progress. We are using this data to, of course, inform our instruction and to just improve the overall quality of our program. So this data is really important, and it shows us where our areas of strength are and where any areas of weakness are, and that's what we focus on the next year. Again, another reminder of just when each section was implemented. It has 4 sections: listening, speaking, reading, writing. Listening section implemented in 2010. Then the following year we added speaking in 2011. Then in 2012 it had 3 sections. It had listening, speaking, and reading. And then by 2013 it had all 4 sections. So this past year that was the second group of children that took all 4 sections. So the first part, listening, again, it is just 15 oral statements, and each statement is accompanied by visuals that the children see, and they have to decide which statement goes with what they're seeing. So of course, I brought one example because I feel like I always have to test you at least once.
More tests.
Okay, so here's another example. This is different than any one we've brought before. So this is question number 12, numero 12. So they would see, and we use the smart board for this part of the test, they would see 3 clocks and they would hear.
Número 12. Son las 11:15. Son las 11:15. Son las 11:15.
La respuesta A, B o C. A, B or C. Excelente, muy bien. Qué inteligente. Okay. So yes, the answer was A. So obviously this is reinforcing time. All right, so this part of the exam covers a range of themes. So this was time. Not to go through this all, but this will, I think Dr. Stella said we're going to put this PowerPoint up on our district website so it has all the details. But just to remind you that every section we've created a rubric so we can score what level the student is at, ranging from novice low, because they're still all novice, to novice high. So we need the detail on that.
And this was developed from the ACTFL standards.
Yes. Then we have the speaking component, which is used to gauge the ability the students have to utilize greetings, present personal information. So basically what happens is they have to look at a visual and they have to go into the tech center and put on the noise canceling headphones and look at that visual. It's in front of them in color, and they have to speak and record themselves and describe what they see, which I always say I think this is the most challenging part of the exam. They're not writing anything, so they're just using all the information they've gathered from us over the years and incorporating it into basically this question. So here's what the visual looks like. So this happy Hispanic family. Yes, la familia está feliz. They're very happy. So they can discuss anything from the weather to what season you think it is, to where do you think this family is, what food are they eating. So as you can tell from what I'm saying, this covers a range of themes that we have taught them throughout the years, including 6th grade. So whatever they can pull from their knowledge, that's what they need to record. So we do have one example. I felt like it was really important to at least play a piece of it because this is just such an exceptional response. And I do want to say this is from a student who is not a native speaker. Not a native speaker. This is also a student who has gone on to Hopkins, and she skipped 7th grade Spanish and she is now in 8th grade Spanish. But I think it's really exciting and important to note that she's not a native speaker. It really came from her love of the language, receiving instruction throughout the years here, and just taking so much, just taking it so seriously and getting really excited about it. So here's just a quick sample of her response to this. I just played that up and now it's on. We go back. By the way, try that again.
La familia está en el patio cerca de la casa. Hay 6 personas: la madre, la padre, el hermano, la hermana, la abuela y el abuelo. La hermana es baja y morena, con ojos marrones. Tiene 7 años. El hermano es alto, pero también es moreno con ojos marrones. Tiene 12 años. La madre tiene 40 años y es flaca, no lleva lentes. La madre, el padre y la abuela tienen pelo moreno y ojos marrones. El padre y el hermano llevan camisas azules. La madre lleva una camisa roja. Es el verano, hace sol y calor, no está ni lloviendo ni nublado. Hay el bistec, los pepinos, la ensalada y el pan. También hay la sandía, la piña y otras frutas. Todos beben jugo de naranja. La familia está contenta.
Is she done? Okay, so it's so detailed. I mean, you can hear how exceptional it is, and she's not a native speaker, and I think she might have covered every possible theme that you could discuss looking at this photo. I don't know what she missed. So that was such a thorough and exceptional response that we felt like we had to share it with you. And again, we have a rubric for the speaking component. We have a rubric for every section of the exam. And we had the reading component, which consists of 15 multiple choice questions, and the parts of the test are basically things that you'd come across could be in real life, for example, a train schedule or a plane schedule, or it could even be a birthday card, anything you'd see in Spanish, and then the question, they have to read it, and then the questions pertain to whatever they're reading. So we just picked this example. This is the last part of the very end of this part of the test where they have to read, you know, this reading about mariachis completely in Spanish, and then they have to answer several questions all about mariachi bands to demonstrate their understanding and comprehension of the two paragraphs. And again, we have a reading rubric, scoring them from novice low to novice high. And the very last section of the test is the writing component, where they're given a scenario and they have to respond in writing with as much as they possibly can. We do give them a guide of various themes and topics that they can touch upon just to get them started. But the reminders and the tips are all in English, so we're not giving away any hints. So this scenario was, you are a student studying in Mexico as part of an exchange program. It's your first day of class, and your teacher has asked you to introduce yourself to your classmates, create a written script in preparation for your speech. So this can include various themes, you know, knowing how to introduce yourself, where you're from, where you live, maybe your favorite subjects in school and why, your least favorite subjects in school, talking about your family. So again, it's broad, similar to that speaking section where that picture has so many different things that you can talk about. The same thing applies here. And that's really on purpose because we have to accommodate all students, the student that can come up with a page and a half to the student who can only come up with a paragraph, but at least they're showing the knowledge they've gained over the years and what they can produce. So we have one here. This is a longer one. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a full page, so you can see. We have students who can produce a full page of a written response, and we have others that will produce a paragraph or two. So there is a range. And there's the writing rubric. And Steph's going to quickly just touch upon the data from this past year and what we see.
Good data. All right, so the listening comprehension data this year, 2014, 74% of the students scored at novice high, 24 at novice mid-range, and 2% on the novice low. And this is great. We're seeing, you know, a movement from the novice mid, novice low into the novice high, nice steady increase, so that's great. Speaking component, the data this year shows that 50% were at novice high, 37% were at novice mid, and 10% were at novice low. And this is not the steady incline because 2013 was 63% were at novice high. Stephanie and I both agree that this was an exceptionally good year, and if you kind of take that out, there's still that steady incline.
It was an exceptional cohort of students, and we also have to take into account we keep getting new students that keep flowing in, especially this year. I think we have the highest number of new students coming in. We have students coming into 6th grade Spanish who have never learned a single word of Spanish. So this happens, and so it can
They're so
affect
responsible
the
for
data.
taking the test, so. All right, so that's an area of focus for us still. Reading comprehension, we're seeing the movement we like.
Do they only take this in 6th grade?
Yeah. 80% were at the novice high, 13% were at novice mid, and 7% at novice low. Again, seeing the movement from novice mid, novice low into the novice high. Good steady increase, and the same for writing. This last year was only the second year that we had the reading. 55% were at novice high, 32% at novice mid, and 13% at novice low. So we're concluding that the students are making steady progress in the areas of listening, reading, and writing. Speaking obviously is an area of focus. It's always been a focus because it is one of the hardest things to master. And the Spanish exit exam is valuable not only for informing us on how to teach the kids, but it also provides articulation data to Amity Middle School for placement. what are we thinking for our future plans? Well, we're going to continue to review all 4 sections of the tests. We're going to share the results with the Amity Middle School so they can assist in that for the placement of 7th grade. We're going to make additional test modifications to accommodate 504 new students, special education, and we're also going to try to challenge the advanced students. And also for the program itself, this year we also are getting iPads in 6th grade, so we're going to be doing a lot of the same initiatives as last year, is trying to get the projects that we have now that are going to be more, geared more towards the iPads. And also there's a technology incentive in the 1st grade as well. Only not with the iPads, but more in the computer lab.
Stephanie, may I add one other future plan for this year? We're going to communicate, we're going to meet very shortly with the administration and teachers from the middle school and also from Bethany Elementary District. Just to talk about programs, there's a difference in the approach here at Woodbridge, Beecher Road School than in Bethany. And also, our children, many of our children are coming at more advanced levels in the high school and in the middle school, so adjustments have to be made, so we're going to try to articulate among each other too with that. That's one. The other thing we have to look at, and I'm sure the board will discuss this later, is you can see we have progressed as far as the amount of time for language instruction. Our 2 teachers are at capacity level right now as far as what they can do. And there's a, I don't want to use the word competition, but we're trying to meet all subject areas. We're trying to increase science instruction, all the literacy instruction, math instruction. So it's a question of how much we could put into any particular curriculum. So we'll have a year of study on that, taking a good look at it. Also, what I would mention too is that what we're finding is that just that young student who spoke so articulately, fluently, did a good job. There are some of our students, just like as in music or in physical education, are doing more work outside of school too, in a variety of different ways to promote it. So there's a certain amount that we can do mid-school. Just as in music, we start our instrumental program at 4th grade, but we have some children, because of lessons they've taken, have come in playing an instrument before they even join the orchestra or when they join the orchestra. The same thing in sports. So we're trying to look at it holistically too. What kind of experiences can we encourage or provide outside the world language classroom itself? But that's a year's examination and discussion.
Trip to Spain. I just wanted to say before we get started, this was an excellent summary of where we were and where we are now. It's hard to remember that it was that short a time ago that we were, just teaching Spanish and French at various levels. The other thing is just the time spent in the curriculum development from the exit exam from 2010 to now, the amount of time in instruction, the way you're integrating all of that with all the other subjects, in school, the added sessions, the unexpected enrollment, all of that, and just based on a sample of one. My daughter loves Spanish. She is fearless in everything she's learning except vocabulary. That's the one thing, and that's the easiest thing to learn. But it's an amazing program, and this was a very, very helpful summary, and I liked the analysis and showing us the progression. That was great. So the only thing, when now everybody can ask questions, just remember we're going to talk about goals at the end of the meeting. So when we're talking about this, we're looking at the current program a little more than board goals for this year. Okay. All right. Steve has had his hand up for a long time.
I just have 2 questions. So I probably have more, but I'll start with you. My first one is the rubric that you have and the exam that you give. You said it comes from some ACTFL. Are there norms by which we say our kids are doing better than what other schools, or is this a test you came up with based on their standards, or is this like a test that they do and they say we expect 6th graders to be here and we're doing better, or?
No, there's no grade level on it. It's more, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It's just wherever the kids are at. well, the ACTFL, first of all, has their own standards, and it's what, like, say, Steph and I would take if we want to become language teachers. You know, where they rank our proficiency based on, you know, how well we write or how well we speak. And so we took those guidelines and, you know, modified them a little bit, and we crafted our exit exam, and we just, you know, it goes from novice to mid to advanced to, is there another one? I can't, I want to say that there's a fourth one, but our kids, since they're elementary, we didn't even bother with the mid. So we just consider everyone at novice. We took those guidelines and just, that's where the rubric comes from. There's it's not like a grade level, and there's no expectation that, like, at 6th grade, all students should be this way, unfortunately.
So, and then, I'm not sure I understand the concept of just an exit test, because, you know, like you showed, so last year was a good class, and they did amazingly well. The next year, it has no, to me, predictive ability of telling, you know, a single test on a single group that's leaving doesn't really give you information, since every kid is starting at different places. So I guess my question is there any thought to doing this exam annually, right? I mean, to me, you want to know the individual student's progression and be able to take the information and apply it. So if you have a kid that's at the low novice, and then they move to the novice or even high, you're tailoring the education to the kid, as opposed to this, which just tells you at the end, you know, this class didn't do as well as reading. But if you looked at your last year's 2013 reading results, you would say, we don't need to spend any time in reading, they're great. And then the following year, it fell off, not necessarily because you weren't doing it, but like you said, you have kids moving in, you know, in 3rd or 4th grade having no experience. So to me, this exam would be much more useful, and maybe this is just a time thing that can be very difficult, is you want to do this annually so you show progression of the kids. So maybe it's not this big exam, but it seems to me that you'd want to.
That's a good point. That's why we started and said there's an evolution of our world language program. When we started several years back, world language was not a major subject. It was almost like a release time and an exploratory kind of thing. So that's a good point, and it would bring us benefit as we go along to do that.
I think that's a particularly good point, because at the last presentation, Emily and I argued in favor of a lot more time front-loading in kindergarten and 1st grade, which you're now beginning to do. So you would be able to track whether that added time actually has value in terms of improved levels of performance, which I would suspect it would be dramatically improved.
I noticed too that you doubled the time for kindergarten and 1st grade, but not 2nd grade. Is 2nd grade in the works to have it happen, or is there a reason why you're stopping in 2nd grade and then doubling it again in 3rd grade?
We've just been, 3rd through 6th grade has been in place, actually, since I've been here. So that would be 1997. I'm dating myself. But we increased slowly, beginning in kindergarten, and then it's been gradual. So the hope is that we would increase it in 2nd grade. But our schedules are truly at our capacity, and I don't know how it's
And remember, we added 3 classrooms this year too, so we just did not have the capacity.
Sorry. I realize we don't have any data about it, but do you have any anecdotal response to what it was like last year when you doubled the kindergarten time? What sort of outcomes you've
Like,
seen?
what results from the students?
Yeah, what more you were able to do? Or,
I
you know,
feel honestly, just much more participation from them, really much more excitement, the fact that they got it twice per cycle, just like the you know, it stayed in their head more. They're so much more excited to do like Professor del Dia, where they get up in the middle of the circle and they're tossing the ball, asking questions. I mean, the retention was just so much better, and I'm seeing it, you know, this year, you know, now with the with the 1st grade contact time, it's like, all right, you gotta, you know, take it up a notch. It's really exciting. It really is.
That's how it is throughout the years. The more contact time, the better. I mean, with the upper grades, they're so used to the routines, and the more we see them, the more knowledge they gain, and it's throughout the grade levels. It's like that. So the more they see us,
something clicks with that 2nd class. It's like, oh, this is really important. You know, I don't know. It's just something in there.
Yeah, and I think if you touch a child with a love for anything, whether it's sports or music or instruments, then they're gonna wanna look for opportunities that go beyond the classroom too, whether that's swimming. I was thinking of Margot Farrell's story when she started swimming at a young age and how she went for other things and so on. So the love of the language is a very important part too, and the culture is a very important part.
Okay. Is there any other questions for these two? Okay, thank you again. That was great. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Okay, before we go to facilities, Dr. Fleischman gave us an update. Policy 3280 says that the PTO is exempt from the board approval and that the superintendent can bring those approvals to the board as necessary. He's just a typing wizard over there. I know. How did he do it? I know. That's it's going, who was it, 3279 or 3280? I could hear him thinking.
3162.
That's how it happened, all right. Okay, facilities committee. Karen.
Well, I'm going to defer because you've already heard a lot about what we discussed, but we met on September 4th. We got a thorough update about progress in the building upgrade as well as the summer custodial work, and most of that has already been touched on. The only thing I wanted to add, which I think we didn't touch on, was the implementation of a program, I guess you could call it, that's a result of Tools for Schools committee work, which is that the area rugs are going to be replaced, put on a schedule to make sure they're replaced at least every 6 years in the classrooms. Our next meeting is going to be October 2nd, and we're going to be touring the A-Wing and some of the other projects.
Okay. All right, Matt, policy?
Policy committee will be meeting now on an as-needed basis. There's no objection, it will be as a committee as a whole.
I think if you couldn't quote 3280, you might want to meet a little.
And we do meet on it now, including Steve as the primary.
You didn't want to show off, right, Matt? You were embarrassed. You noticed that?
It's about where I am on the pecking order with the policy committee. I was happy to defer when appropriate, and will continue to defer to those who have more knowledge than me.
All right, finance, Steve? Well, I don't know, I left during finance. Carl, finance.
Finance Committee met a week ago on Monday for a period not exceeding 37 minutes, I suspect was the actual time we spent. The bad news is that there's no good news, and that has interesting implications because typically in the first meeting of the Finance Committee we have discovered that there was in prospect a favorable variance with regard to health insurance costs and the profile of subscribers on the part of the faculty, which I suspect for the last 3 years has been had a very significant impact on the outcome for the year. That favorable confluence of choices and events is not in prospect, which means that we'll be operating this year with regard to the budget as in place, and we'll have to be attentive to the next unexpected event that hits us and has an impact on our finances.
CABE, Lisa?
As I'm sure you all know, the CABE convention is coming up in November. They have announced the speakers. On Friday morning, it'll be a Finnish education specialist, which could be interesting. And on Saturday, it's Bill Daggett, who's a proponent of rigor and relevance in schools, so it's likely to be a fairly hot button kind of discussion, I would think. And then the next CABE workshop is on special education law, and that is on October 1st in Meriden.
ACES, last year we weren't able to make the meetings. We're still, considered part of the ACES organization, but we may need to just say we can't make the times for those meetings and they can't count on us being there unless anybody wants to take up the ACES schedule.
When is it again?
Is it Thursdays at noon?
Marcia?
I believe it is the second Thursday
Okay.
of the month.
It's a tough time. Okay, so if anybody after the meeting feels that they really can spend the time, let me know. Otherwise, we'll let them know that we really just can't participate. Okay. An additional item now on all of our agendas is upcoming meeting presentations so that we can have some input, not to get anything answered tonight, but if there's questions or areas that we would like to have included in the presentations for the next meeting, this is the time so that when we get the presentations and the information, it is what we expected to have. Okay, so next month is math. You have the schedule of meeting topics, which will be updated continuously, but we'll try to make sure that the next meeting at least, there's no changes so that we'll have a chance to discuss it. So next is math district goals for 2014-15 and the tri-state process, really what's involved since the tri-state is coming this year on math. So did anybody have any things that they wanted included that they thought about for math? There are 2 tri-state pieces of information in old minutes. There's the 2010, we had the tri-state on language arts. So that's helpful just to see what they're going to give us in the end. So you guys might want to look back at that. We also have there's 2 summaries of the Tri-State Consortium, what it is, how it was developed, who participates. So that's another document in old meeting minutes you guys can look at. Those I thought were both helpful. The thing, let's see. Yeah, and then there's the TAG audit from 2011 followed very much of the commendations, recommendations format. So again, that's kind of what the Tri-State does. From my perspective, one of the things that I wanted in the Tri-State process is how does it all work kind of from the beginning. We decided we want the Tri-State to focus on math, who all's involved in what's our essential question, how does the gathering of stuff work, just having seen the prior information. I know gathering the documentation is the biggest part of the process and probably the most learning that occurs from the staff, but how does that all happen? Who's involved? Other preliminary activities, if there's other things that you do to prepare, the visit itself, who's involved, who gets to talk to the tri-state group, the time frame for analysis, and then the present, just the time frame for everything. I know they come in May, right? You guys want to come there? Okay, so mine was more a process kind of thing, questions about process, and then of course you're going to talk about what are the essential questions that you're asking. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. New business. Ratified the certified staff appointment. Steve.
Move that we ratified the certified staff appointment of Kevin McHugh at a salary of $49,399 MA, step 3, effective August 26, 2014.
Second. Okay. Dr. Stella, did you want to say anything about our new 6th grade teacher, right?
Yes, we're very fortunate to have someone who is very familiar with Beecher Road School, who knows the children, knows the program, and we had him as a substitute last year. So we know who he is, and he's gotten off to a good start.
Okay. Any questions or Carl?
I'd just add to my comment about the Finance Committee meeting. We looked at the 5-year projection of the current operating budget, which is one of the managerial tools that we've used over the years. And the good news there is that it indicates that we probably would be looking at something on the order of a 4% annual increase in our operating costs. There are some folks who might consider that high, but the good news is that in previous iterations we've been around 5%. And one of the major impacts is the proactive intervention with programs for the faculty for early retirement. And Dr. Stella is going to come back to the Finance Committee meeting at its next meeting. One of the issues with regard to the 5-year projection was the trustworthiness of the demographic projections, and I can tell you with total aplomb that we threw the demographer under the bus. And that Guy's going to come back with some better forecasts of his own of what the demographic trends may be. But we
He's only
wanted-
off by about 25-30%, so.
Yeah, we want to get our data up to date on the impact of the hiring policies and the impact of early returns. And this hiring obviously will play a role in that profile.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay.
You know, related to that, I'll just slip this in. We're up to nearly 800. We had been on the decline for a number of years. When I first came in 2006, if you look backwards, the years previous, there was a steady decline. Probably the year after, too, that we started a slight increase. The big variable has been the moving vans, you know, who moves in. And I would just like to say we have a number of new families that have come in from all over, including other countries. Like offhand, not all inclusive, but I know we have children from Egypt here, from Switzerland, from Canada, from Taiwan, children coming in from China, from Korea. So these are the variables. Now I don't want to mislead. I can't come back with a complete demographic forecast at the next meeting. But what I will do is this year I'll show you how we will approach that as far as coming up for predictions for next year, and that will have a lot to do with the trends of the new families moving in. So we're not using the exact formulas that a demographer would use, but really a lot of gut and a lot of experience over the past few years of doing that.
But why would a demographer, I'm just, you know, it would be silly if a demographer's only thing was birth rate. Because then we would have no one living in Connecticut as our birth rate continues to decline on an annual basis. So to me, the demographer is not about birth rates, it's about moving and what the average sort of turnover rates are in real estate. I mean, look, we can keep, I'm just saying.
You know, it might be interesting. I don't know if it's up to the board, if you want to invite the demographer to show how he goes about it, because I know he uses a number of formulas.
If he was within like 20 people, I'd be impressed. But he's about 240 people off of what our prediction is.
With the 5 year.
With the 5 year.
We remember this year, I'm not defending him, but remember the state of Connecticut, the Commissioner of Education is saying that one of our biggest problems in Connecticut is the decline in public school enrollment. So something is happening in Woodbridge.
Well, that's why we hire one for our town, not for the state of Connecticut.
Okay,
We'd be
so
glad to invite him if you want.
we're still on the motion here.
I'm sorry.
So all those in favor? Okay, all right. And were there any other discussions about the projections and enrollment that we need to, I didn't mean to cut it off, I just wanted
The
to.
discussion is thank you, Board of Education and town and citizens for allowing us to open 3 new classes, otherwise we would have had a problem. So it's
Okay. All right, and the last item of business is the Board of Education goals. You had a draft from the retreat in the minute, or in the e-meeting, Board of Ed goals. So what we need to do is go through this and approve them as our 2014-15 goals. We did the preliminary discussion at the retreat. This is a summary of that. So I don't know how everybody wants to do that. We can start with.
Well, we probably should start with a motion on the table.
Oh,
So I'll
okay.
move that we approve the 2014-15 Woodbridge Board of Ed goals as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
No discussion.
All right. So you want to start? We'll go through them. Differentiation, our first goal. Everybody has what the goal statement is. Does anybody have any discussion, any questions, any changes?
I'm a little bit confused about the phrasing of I guess of how homework has appeared in the goals. I'm not entirely sure what it means as written now, or whether that is consistent with our discussion.
Okay. So encourage teachers to use homework differentiation as part of an overall differentiation goal, or are you questioning to support the initiation of that process? Is there?
I guess I don't quite understand what it means.
Okay.
But also I thought that one of our concerns was to talk about, to take a look at our homework policy and to talk about consistency with respect to the actual practice of homework assignment. I'm not sure that that's captured.
Okay. So, so what would you think then, a separate goal, and maybe not necessarily in differentiation, if really we're looking at consistency of homework? I think we had some differing views. It was, we have guidelines as to the maximum. We don't have guidelines as to the minimum, and there was discussion about the a desire to allow teachers to be different. We don't want, you know, the same thing in all of them. So is there something that we're looking at, you're looking at just a review of, see, I'm not sure.
Homework
review-
policy and practice.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion, I don't know if I'm misstating, but a review of homework policy and in relationship to differentiation, or overall review of homework policy, including relationship to.
I think the concern was that some people had felt that within a grade, the amount of homework given by any potential classroom teacher could vary significantly from another classroom. So what we were interested in was looking at what the overall homework policy is, and if there are variants, you know, maybe looking at why there are such great variants, or if there's a reason for it, that sort of thing.
So do you have?
So is that more of a presentation? I mean, we can get a presentation on homework. I don't know.
That's more like our administrators are really spread all over. It would be more of a look at, it's hard to monitor what everybody's doing for homework. So if I ask my administrators to spend a lot of time, you know, looking at 43 people's homework assignments and things like that, it may be asking a lot. But if we review homework policy and then as an administrative team talk about, okay, how can we work with staff to make sure we're within the guidelines? And if there are examples of extremes that pop up, then that would be up to the administrative staff to address that. But we could also, since we're talking about differentiation as a wider umbrella, look to raise the awareness. Classroom practice should be reflected now in homework. So as we increase the awareness of differentiation in the classroom, we have to look for ways of tying that in also with anything else, that, you know, including homework.
I think they're two different issues, and I think we're trying to make them one issue. I think there's an issue on homework, consistency, time, and policies that we have on the board, and then there's differentiation. If a kid, you know, if the teachers are giving out homework packs for the week, and a kid is already passed a pretest, they shouldn't do the same homework back. That's where homework comes into differentiation. And I'm not saying that that's, I think what we're looking at is, under the concept of differentiation, there's the idea that homework should not necessarily be here, everyone do the same packet. It should be, you know, to what you're differentiated to. I think homework policy as a separate sort of looking at homework policy, and we have policy on homework, and sort of more of, are we adhering to what our current policies are? How are we doing in terms of homework, in terms of communicating it between the PLCs? I mean, I think that that's more of a...
And are existing policies consistent with, you know, sort of the latest thinking about, you know, giving homework? Okay.
So that's, you know, that to me is not, if you put it under differentiation, we're going to end up getting lost in two separate issues, in my opinion.
So can we do this? Can we take the review of the homework policy guidelines and the application of those guidelines and consistency within those guidelines? Can we take that out of the board goals and then have you come back to us maybe and say, this is what we can do on that front?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure it's a board goal. It's really an activity we're asking the administration to engage in, and maybe you can come back and say,
we can figure something
you know, how we
out with that.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right.
I have one other question about
Yep.
the differentiation. The third item, support use of assessment tools to inform instruction. Can you just explain that? It's not...
I think that was the discussion we had about pre-tests. I mean, that was the example, but I don't think we wanted to limit it to that. How does the use of, for example, pre-tests change the instruction in the classroom, and what other assessment tools are currently in use that, you know, are intended to inform instruction and differentiate among students, So I think the discussion was mostly about pretest, but I don't think we wanted to limit it to that, at least that was my recollection.
I just wouldn't want it to suggest that we wanted any more assessment.
Oh, no, no,
we
no,
would definitely say
no,
using the
okay.
same.
So support use of
Current.
existing,
Yes.
okay, all right.
And making sure that we're using the tools that we already
Okay,
have.
okay, so yeah, that was not the intention, that, okay.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
while ago that we
Good
discussed
point.
it.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Effective use of current assessment.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I read that, unless I'm misreading, is that the board is supporting us, charging us with developing a very cohesive, meaningful assessment system. So weeding out what doesn't belong and putting in what belongs, kind of thing, and looking at it from kindergarten to 6. Assessment is designed to be part of curriculum. It's supposed to be meaningful, it's supposed to be relevant. So it's always good, and we've just not so long ago moved to a K-6 variety, so it's still a work in progress of looking at the design. So that support is appreciated, and it's going to be a main work that we're undertaking too.
Okay. Was there anything else on differentiation? Okay. World language. Okay. Math.
Well, I mean, is this a time to talk about that subject matter, or just to talk about the wording of how this?
Well, I think what we want to make sure is that the board goal that we're identifying will result in the outcome that we want in the goal. So, for example, we want to make sure that if we're asking for, the administration to say, okay, look at the current program, look at the pros and cons of expanding that program, and then tell us what they are. Come back and tell us what they are. That's a synthesis, hopefully, of what we were looking for. If we're looking for more or different, then this is the time we want to talk about that, because otherwise this is what we'll get, and we don't want to be, we don't want to expect something that we haven't identified. So,
And so if I can just add though, for the second piece, I'm concerned about the fact that the second graders only have that amount of time that they have currently. So I don't know if this is going to be something that's brought up for expanding in the future, or if there's any room for a discussion of, what could be done currently in this school year to enable the second graders to have parity with the rest of the student body in terms of the number of contacts that they're having in Spanish, and why, if that was a board goal in the future for next year, I guess Dr. Sell said that the current Spanish teachers are at capacity, so I guess there's going to be some hiring of teachers next year to work with those kids, but wondering what potentially could be done before next year in that area.
I mean, we're looking at that. That's a hard question, because again, our world language has evolved over the years, and each year we've tried to add to it. And this year we added 3 classes, additional classes that we had to take care of too. But we are looking at ways. I'm not promising anything earth-shaking other than I don't think it's practical to hire another teacher now. That would throw everything off as far as our language program. But we'll look for ways, and I'll try to give you some feedback at the next meeting on that.
Have we ever in our history hired an adjunct person to come in and teach, since we're talking about a small number of students who aren't receiving what other students are receiving?
There are lots of complications with that. That's a budget item, but then that's a scheduling item too. Remember that when the world language teacher goes in, that's for a release time period. So we have this complicated schedule that's so interrelated. What are the implications of bringing another person on right now? And there's a lot to it that's involved with that.
And I think too, and maybe we need some feedback from, we had K1 and 2 all at 1. Then we added 2 to K1 and 1 and 2. Then we went from K continued with 2, 1 went to 2 stayed at 1, second grade stayed at 1. So there's been a progression, which is what they showed us. We were at 1-1-1, we went to 2-1-1, now we're 2-2-1, which is the progression of the language sessions over the grades that were added to the program when we went from exploratory to proficiency. So
so this, for example, last year, the first grade only got one session.
Right, and is that a budget reason why it's being implemented year by year by year, as opposed to, since it was the intent to expand it to all those grades just over 3 years, why it wasn't done all at once?
Budget certainly comes into it. I mean, a big priority of ours was we're opening up the classes, new classes. So budget is always a consideration, but it's just part of the whole puzzle, how you put things together. And again, we're progressing with the world language program.
So I guess I'm trying to get a feel for, I think what you're asking for is some feedback on whether or not there can be any changes during the existing school year. That's what you're asking? Okay. I don't know, Carl?
As the goal stands, that we have adopted the notion that there would be an active promotion of the study of world language. So the next step then is to hear back from Guy and the administration about how he intends to help us reach that goal.
Right, and I think the expectation difference, I just want to make sure that everybody's, the expectation versus going forward versus this year, changes to this year's activities.
That's for Guy to figure out.
Okay.
We'll look at it from all angles. Emily will hear you loud and clear. We'll look at it from all angles. Again, it's a problem to wrestle with, maybe a good one in that this board does support world language very strongly. We're wrestling with our curriculum, with how much time to allot to everything. At the same time, we have to meet with we're meeting with our counterparts in the OWA districts, because not everyone's on the same page. And I know even with the superintendent in Amity, children are coming into the middle schools with different capacities and so on. So it's something that's very relevant to look into. And I'll try to give you whatever update I can on this here. We'll look at it from different angles and try to have more information.
Okay. And once we have the goals established, the other thing that we need to integrate with it is, and that'll be back to you to say, when will we get all of this within our, our calendar of meetings, and when is our expectation for various components of this, and certainly more than once, not, one single session.
Yeah.
So is there, so was there anything else on world language? Dr. Stella, did you have something else you wanted?
I just want to add a general thing. I have my administrative team here. These people are working tirelessly on so many different things. So I have to watch that balance of where their time and our time is going to. We still have that major thing with the teacher evaluation that is still in motion, and trying to develop the growth model of that. They're working so hard on everyone is on the report card situation. Differentiation is a big, very important area that we have. We'll be looking at social studies and science standards that are new and so on. So there's a limit to how much time we put in every direction. But saying that, we'll do whatever is necessary to improve the quality.
And maybe, one of the things that we have to understand, if you come back and say, there's no way to accommodate all of this, we can go back and say, what are our priorities within this? We have more goals than is recommended, for district or for board goals. So if if you need to come back and tell us something, then we'll need to figure out what are our priorities within this. This was really our entire wish list. We didn't take anything off, I don't think.
I can tell you, as our district goals, we have, and this has the voice of the school board behind it. We're putting a major effort on differentiation, which will cover a lot of ground. But we're focusing particularly on other areas too, but particularly on mathematics as a way of developing strategies that could transition to other areas too. So that's a main focus that we have. Now, and we're looking for a cohesive assessment design that ties, so you tie a good curriculum into a cohesive assessment design that's relevant, and then you have a well thought out, implemented growth model evaluation system then you have all the parts interconnecting. So we're trying to look at it holistically. What I have to be careful about is a superintendent is pulling my administrative team and teachers in too many directions at the same time.
Right, and I think we're hearing your concern. So when we finish, if what we are looking at is more than can be handled, then we need to know, and we will prioritize within this.
That sounds good.
Okay. Does anybody have any?
And I thought when we left in the summer that part of what we were going to be doing tonight was prioritizing this list. I didn't think we were just presenting this list as it was. I thought there was going to be further discussion.
Okay. All right, so let's get through the list, and then we can, I guess everybody can pick the ones they like, and we'll figure out what the priority is. So if we are forced to back off of anything, we already know what that list is. Okay? All right. Math, this one was pretty much already mirrored in the tri-state. Okay. Social emotional.
Can I make a suggestion on math? This is strictly a suggestion because it's up to the board to decide it. We have a wider goal than the as important as the tri-state is, we have a wider goal of a math initiative designed to improve the quality of our math program. And the tri-state comes in as one component moving in that direction. So
You just support evaluation of math program, not
support
limited
the
to...
implementation of the math initiative, and then we could give you different things that we're working on, because we could do a more comprehensive presentation to you on that.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Social emotional, was there anything in this? No? Okay. Preschool, that was a very, focused, it's the preschool study. I'm not sure how far we need to carry it as a board goal. And then healthy food.
I have to comment.
Okay.
I'm not sure that, as written, this goal reflects what's happened in the past as far as the goals that the board has already articulated. It says to promote healthy food initiatives, which I think we have been doing all along, and this is not a new goal.
Okay.
And I think that to stress it now as a new goal, I think it's going to overstate what needs to be done with the cafeteria.
Okay.
Providing what I in general think we've gone too far as a country with controlling food for people. I think it infringes on people's personal choices. But to say I'm against healthy food and don't think the board should have a goal of a healthy food is not what I'm saying. I just think that as written, it doesn't capture what has been already put in place. I don't even know how it made the list. I thought it was voted down before I had the summer thing, to be honest
Oh, I don't
with
think so. I think we had strong support for the idea that we needed to look carefully at our food.
Yeah,
I remember you saying that.
Okay, so
That was 3. That's the 3.
okay. So is
I know,
there...
I was the only one who
no.
articulated that I like chocolate cake.
Yeah.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but...
And I think differentiation,
I had one.
through this goal, we're not trying, differentiation. We're in no way trying to imply there hasn't been huge amounts of work done already on differentiation. This is a continuation of that. Is there a phrasing that would better reflect
I would say
this?
rather than say promote, continue to promote.
Right.
I guess
Okay.
would be something like
All right.
that, would soften the statement.
Okay.
What did the survey
Oh, I see,
say? What did the survey
differentiation.
say? What did the survey say?
A lot of people weren't happy with the food.
Right.
But
Some
that
people
didn't
thought it was-
necessarily mean they thought it was
That's
something that had
exactly
to
right.
be changed. I just
That's
want to come at it
exactly
from
right.
another direction,
What?
and I am coming at it from the other direction, but I thought the wording should be of the goal, not that what we want to promote, but that we want to evaluate the progress of healthy food initiatives that have been implemented and determine whether we want to take a different approach.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a lot closer.
Okay.
That's very
Is
different
that-
than what's written.
So what you said was evaluate the progress or the healthy food initiative that...
I said
What-
evaluate the progress that has been made on healthy food initiatives and determine whether we want to take a different approach. Evaluate the progress and necessity of the... That's that.
What was it?
But I don't
Evaluate the
understand how
progress
this-
made on healthy food initiatives and what, Karen? I missed the last part. I
Whether,
apologize.
determine whether we want to take a different approach. Change our approach.
Right, and I just don't understand if we have 40% or whatever it was of parents who are concerned about the cafeteria, what's at the cafeteria.
No, but the question was, do they think that there are healthy food choices? But saying that they don't think that there's healthy food choices doesn't necessarily mean they think that that's an important thing to change. I mean, I don't know how great
that's how you're interpreting it?
food choices are, but I send my kids with lunch every day, and
So you don't think that they're important food choices, but you don't think that's an important issue?
correct.
Right. I don't think my kids have ever bought lunch except for any.
But it's
I mean,
not
if
that
it's
important,
world
right?
language
About
or
this. We all have strong
healthy
feelings
food.
about this one way or the other. We need to know what parents think about it.
Yeah.
Or like
So is everybody okay with changing and then we'll be looking at priorities next, but is everybody okay with saying evaluate the progress made on healthy food initiatives and determine if an approach change is?
Why don't we just say evaluate the current food options or something? I mean, just,
Okay.
there's no reason to
Okay.
say about healthy food directives or non-directives, you just evaluate the current food.
Is everybody okay with that?
So it's just a simple sentence.
Practice.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
You know, there's the policy, which maybe needs refinement, and then there's the practice, which somehow has taken a healthy food policy and allowed Doritos and Fruit Loops in the cafeteria, which blows my mind.
Okay, so evaluate the current food offerings, policy and practice. The current food policy and practice.
That's it.
Okay.
Evaluate the current food policy.
Policy and practice. Okay. All right.
Food options, policy, oh, no, practice, policy.
Oh,
and practice.
we're already done now. We can't do this again. Can't do this again.
No.
Okay, so now we have 6. Is everybody okay if we take preschool out? That is going to happen. That is not really, I mean.
Steve would be the only one who'd be upset with that.
No, I mean, not taking it out, knowing it's going to happen because it's a study separate from.
Yeah, I don't
okay.
care. I mean, I think
All right,
it's just-
so we're down to 5. So what we've done in the past is everybody gets a certain number of votes and you pick, go ahead,
Can
Carl.
I suggest that we act on the motion that was previously
Oh.
moved and seconded as amended
As amended?
and establish that this is the piece about which we would talk further and then go through the process of setting priorities.
That's a good idea.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with regard to math, maybe I don't know if this is true, but if maybe that doesn't need to be a goal either. We're getting a presentation on it, but maybe it doesn't need to be a goal.
Since it's already happening through this tri-state.
Well, so is differentiation, so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that because they're happening doesn't mean they should be on here. I don't know. What is?
I think in general, if we're going to make an investment in something, such as a change to the math curriculum or something, it should be a board goal, because otherwise we're not aligned with what we're working on. So we already know we're working on math, the third goal should align with the superintendent's goals, which should align with what we're working on for the year. So if we have a board goal of, English, and we already plan to work on math and world languages, then we don't really align what supposedly we're focused. So I would leave it in only because we're probably going to have to make some decisions about putting resources towards math. And so if our goals and our budget and everything align, it just makes more sense.
Okay, so Carl's proposed, just say move that we approve the board goals as amended.
And I'll second that. And, well, before we second, just to state succinctly, it's eliminating the preschool and changing the last one, healthy food as stated to evaluate.
Right, we changed a couple things, and I can.
Oh, okay, then why
So-
don't you just summarize?
So in differentiation, the third item, we said support the use of effective current assessment tools to inform instruction. In world language, no, current and future, I guess current and future, but I don't think we have to change the wording. We're looking at this year and next. In math, we said support the implementation of the math initiative, so we changed that. Social emotional, no changes. And healthy food, evaluate the current food policy and practices, current food policy and practices.
So the maker of the motion and the seconder have accepted that as friendly amendments.
Okay, so now we can vote. All in favor? Okay. So given the discussion we've had and Dr. Stella's, caveat that, we can't do everything, we can go through and prioritize these. So if anything has to give, we already have our list of what's on the top, priorities 1 through 5. So in the past, Steve, didn't we go through and everybody got like 3 votes and you had to put them somewhere?
I don't think we ever prioritized before, I'll be honest.
No, we did. Remember, we had all those.
Last year we got rid of some.
No, but that just decided what made it to the list.
Okay.
So we did points for different things, and
Okay.
only the top vote getters got on the list initially.
Okay.
But I thought
I
the
remember
first
that
time when
too,
we
yeah.
said we were gonna prioritize, we turned around and decided that it's all a priority and,
Okay. Okay.
But I'm happy to prioritize, I don't.
Okay.
My sense is that we're not imposing anything new on Guy, and he's already established priorities of his own with regard to the initiatives and the evaluations and the periodic reporting to the board. So let his schedule drive us at this point.
But if people want to prioritize, if people feel more
Do
comfortable
people feel like
with
they need to
numbers.
prioritize, or maybe they have strong goal, desire to, I want to take a vote to prioritize.
So I don't know then if Dr. Stella comes back and says, when we look at the schedule and when we can get updates on the various goals and what is going to be the support of these goals from his perspective, if you come back and say, I can't support all of these, do we want to wait till then and say, what are we going to do? Or do we want to try to give him our top to bottom lineup now?
How many goals have we had in the past?
I think last year we had 3, the year before, I can't remember. We had some the year before that were related to process, like strictly, like Dr. Stella didn't have to do stuff, so those were a little different. We had extras because they were more how we conduct ourselves.
But I don't think that we're asking Guy to do anything other than what he is currently doing with regard to all of these, routine isn't the right word, but routine administrative matters. And the key change is that he needs to be reporting to us perhaps on a more accelerated basis, but it's going to be material about which he's already receiving reports from appropriate subordinates of his, so.
I remember it being, they're all important. And not prioritizing. That's. I remember
Okay,
that.
all right, so let's table the prioritization if at any point, like you said, you've already told us, there's a lot to do. If, when we go to put these on, when are we gonna get updates and when are we gonna get outcomes? We'll discuss it then, if we need to. And hopefully we won't have to. Okay. All right, so, I think, public comment, Marcia, there's nobody left. Unless
You're not gonna skip it.
I know, we're not even gonna bother, I'm sorry.
I gotta look.
Is this the first time?
Yeah, oh my God.
No,
We still need to.
I'm sorry.
We just did.
We voted on the amended, we did. Yep. I remember it.
No, I know that. I was.
Do I get a
I
fee?
make a mistake and people get.
Do I get a fee?
We're all over
Do
you.
I get a fee?
Jeez.
I'm gonna make another mistake before I go to sleep tonight. I'm positive of that.
Okay. All right, so then I believe we just